A bodybuilder who was 21 years old and had never been in a starring role showed up on the Incredible Hulk set in 1978. He was hearing impaired. He was scared. Furthermore, Bill Bixby taught him a lot. People used to think they didn't work together very well for years. The truth was just told by Lou Ferrigno, though. Bixby taught him how to move, act, and feel for hours away from the camera. The green makeup didn't get on Lou's hearing aids because of him. He even worked with him for 12 hours a day, which made a third of the team sick or caused them to quit. Actually, it's not about fame. It is about pain, loss, and a bond that changed their lives for good. Somewhat strange happened in San Francisco's Grace Cathedral in 1947, when Bill Bixby was only 13 years old. For a long time, Bill quietly pulled out a slingshot during a choir service while wearing his robe and pointed it at the bishop. He ran into him, thoughtfully placed during the service. We didn't have a silly mistake. He was planning on doing it. He was kicked out of the band for good. His family really appreciated that small choir grant. It was his mother Jane who worked at Magnin and Company as a top manager was trying to make ends meet for their family after years of bad money luck. The scandal really made her look bad, and it hurt their already bad image. However, the moment also told us something deeper about Bill. He wasn't afraid of people in charge. For him, breaking the rules is better than keeping quiet when something is wrong. Throughout his life, he would repeat that trend. When Bill turned 18 in 1952, he was faced with being drafted into the Korean War. He understood the dangers. That war killed more than 36,000 Americans. He did not wait for the army to take him. Instead, he moved quickly. He joined the Reserve Marine Corps. His team, VMA 141, has a bad reputation. A total of 18 of its 41 officers were killed at Guadalcanal during World War II. Bill's monthly pay as a private first class was only $95. That was not as much as he could make at a normal job. He could have died, but staying in the United States gave him a chance to live and dream bigger. Bill stayed close to home while other kids his age went to war. He was in charge of personnel files at Naval Air Station Oakland. He might have saved his life and his job by making that choice. Why this was so important to him goes back to when he was a kid. When Bill was young, the Great Depression was going on. His dad, Wilfred Bixby II, worked in a shop and made $18 to $22 a week. In today's money, that's around $350. His mom worked at somewhat more. Magnin made about $35 to $40 a week. It was good, but not enough. Bill's dad joined the Navy and was sent to the South Pacific when Bill was 8 years old, in 1942. It was up to Jane to raise him by herself. Smaller and smaller homes were needed for them. Bill often slept without eating. They got food from church groups and lived. It was because of this that the choir money was so important, and being kicked out hurt more than just his pride. In 1956, Bill dropped out of UC Berkeley with only a few classes left to graduate. He had no money, but was driven. The Hollywood Roosevelt hotel job paid only $40 to $45 a week. In order to make enough money to live on, he also worked as a lifeguard at the hotel pool and earned an extra $15 to $20 a day. Besides working 12 to 14 hours a day, he also lived in a tiny room nearby for $8 a week. He ate food from the hotel that was left over and took acting lessons with any extra money. The Roosevelt wasn't just picked at chance, though. It was a good strategy. Stars like Clark Gable and Marilyn Monroe loved that pool. Some advertising directors from Detroit saw him one day and offered him a modeling job that paid $200 a week, which was 3 times what he was making at the hotel. What happened then changed everything. Using his last $75, he got a bus ticket to Detroit in 1959. He was given a part in a play called The Boyfriend. The Detroit Civic Theater has a $25 a week pay limit. There wasn't much money left for food after paying $20 in rent. He ate only beans and bread and lost 18 pounds while he was on stage. He did make money, but that job gave him something much more valuable. He was seen by talent scouts. So he could go back to LA. They gave him $300 a week. That $75 bet turned into a full-time job. He went to the Estelle Harmon School of Acting and paid for classes with the $200 he made from the Detroit show. It was there that an agent saw him and signed him. 2 years after that, he got his first real TV job on Dobie Gillis's Many Loves. Thereafter, in 1963, he went to an interview and introduced himself as Bill Bixby. While looking at him, director Jack Cherdick told him, "No, you're not. Hello, My name is Tim O'Hara. In that way, he got the lead part on My Favorite Martian, a TV show that ran until 1966 and was one of the top 10. It got a grade of 26.3 and was ranked 10th in the 1963 to 64 season. But the work was very hard. One full day of filming and up to 75 setups a day made this show different from others that only filmed 3 to 4 days a week. They didn't have time to practice, and as soon as one show was over, the script for the next one was given to them. Creating each show took about $57,000. It made Bill popular, but it also worried him. Would the thought of Tim O'Hara ever leave him? He played small parts in movies, even ones that didn't give him credit, to get noticed. In Billy Wilder's Irma La Douce, 1963, he played a wounded sailor with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. The movie made $25.2 million, but wasn't allowed on TV for years because of what happened in it. He made friends with top directors and learned how big studio sets work, even though his part was small. He was cast as James J. Jameson III in the 1967 movie Clambake, which starred Elvis Presley. But things were crazy on set. The big Elvis fell in his bathroom after gaining weight and hit his head. The shooting was pushed back. Also, Elvis was sad and making another silly show. His group caused chaos every day with water fights, firecrackers, and pie fights. To keep the chaos under control, MGM had to send out alerts. Bill kept things businesslike, though. Bill was admired, and he even used one of his favorite spoken word songs, Softly As I Leave You, in one of his own concerts years later. Still, Santa Carta 15 became the movie's highest-grossing album. In 1968, the next year, Bill did another show with Elvis called Speedway. He played the gambler Kenny Donford, whose problem almost ended the racing career of his friend. Real drivers like Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough were in it because it was the first big movie about NASCAR. Elvis made $8.5 million plus 50% of the income. Bill had many flaws and felt a lot of things. That was one of his best early movie roles. At that point, Bill was sick of acting solo. His father was dating someone else in 1970, which is when he started directing. From 1969 to 1972, he played Tom Corbett, a dad who had lost his wife and was raising his son Eddie. People were stunned by how well he and kid actor Brandon Cruz got along. Including The Karate Story, which aired in January 1972, he was in charge of 8 shows in total. His performance won him a nomination for an Emmy in 1971. He was meticulous, a professional, and very involved in the process of directing. Someone who was determined to get what they desired. People who played lead roles back then weren't allowed to direct, but Bill made it happen. In 1976, he shocked people once more. He portrayed Willie Abbott in Rich Man, Poor Man, a character who was shaped by power and greed. This part was very different from how he was portrayed as a warm father. On average, 34.9 million people watched each part of the miniseries. His work got him nominated for another Emmy. People were shocked when he played a man with no morals, but that's what made the role so powerful. One of his most unexpected parts was in The Magician in 1973. His character was Anthony Blake, a real magician who solved crimes. Every magic trick he did on screen was real, which made it stand out. There were no tricks or special effects used. He learned sleight of hand, mind reading, and escape tricks from magician Mark Wilson. People saw 22 episodes of the show that showed magic the hard way. He kept giving orders too. In 1975, he directed episodes of Manic, such as A Ransom for Yesterday, that came out on February 9th. It was all about a $250,000 debt, which is about $1.4 million today. Each episode of that show had an average of 3.2 deaths, making it one of the most deadly on TV. Bill's direction was less about the bloodshed and more about how people felt afterward. He worked on 4 shows, including Courage and Hardball, which showed that he could handle tough crime stories while still making them seem like real people. At a meeting at CBS in November 1977, Bill Bixby made a strong proposal. He told them that the Hulk show would not be a silly kids show. It was going to be serious and dramatic, he said. He did not want comic book or brightly colored pictures or jokes. He wanted to show suffering, being alone, and trouble. It took a while for the producers to believe him. They thought it would be like Batman from the 1960s. On November 4th, 1977, when the pilot played, it horrified everyone. The sad piano music and dark shadows made it look like a scary movie. Bixby made Dr. David Banner seem like a real man who was overwhelmed with sorrow. That pilot became the most popular TV movie on CBS all year. Exactly, Bixby made his point. From March 10th, 1978 to May 12th, 1982, a total of 80 shows made up the whole show. Working behind the scenes was hard. The actor Lou Ferrigno had to do makeup every day for 3 to 4 hours. He sat still for 20 hours on the flight. He still had to act in full costume for 12 to 14 hours after getting dolled up. It was hard for him to even wash off the paint. His trailer had to have a special shower put in, and 2 helpers would scrub his back. It happened every week that they only worked 3 long days. Occasionally, they worked 7 days straight without a break. His green makeup hurt his skin. He said the things that were on his face felt like they were stuck on like jelly. The makeup artist switched around a few times. It wasn't simple. Despite everything that was happening, Bixby wasn't just pretending. He also started making shows. The 2-part story he directed in 1981 was called The First, and it was one of the strongest in the series. Something happened in that same year that would never be the same for Bixby again. In March 1981, he was skiing at Mammoth Lakes with his 6-year-old son Christopher. The kid got a sore throat all of a sudden. At the hospital, Christopher had to wait while the doctor took out a splinter from the finger of another patient. It was too late to put in a breathing tube by the time they tried. Christopher had a heart attack and died. Bixby later said, "My son died of suffocation while the doctor was taking off a splinter from the finger of another doctor." He felt terrible about losing that. He maintained that he was furious and unable to concentrate for 2 years. On April 7th, 1982, a little more than a year later, Christopher's mother, actress Brenda Benet, killed herself. There was only 36 of her. She set off lights, went to the bathroom, and used a .38 revolver to shoot herself, killing herself. It had been a year since Bixby and Benet split. Friends said she was so sad since their son died that she couldn't breathe. Also, 2 weeks ago, she broke up with someone. That was way too much. In just 13 months, Bixby lost both his child and his ex-wife. He had to work hard to stay alive. Late in 1981, he began directing episodes of Mr. Merlin. The Cloning of the Green, one of the first shows to air, was on October 14th, 1981. Even though the show ended in March 1982 after only 22 episodes, Bixby directed many of them, even though it hurt him. People on the set said he was warm and friendly, even though it was clear he was hurting. He learned how to stay alive by directing. He started to feel that need for family and bond years before he worked on The Courtship of Eddie's Father from 1969 to 1972. Brandon Cruz was the boy who played Eddie. He didn't come from a good family. Bixby took him in and taught him things. When they weren't acting, they became close. Bixby talked to Cruz about his real family. It was after the show that he realized he had that part of himself. Because of Brandon, Bixby loved Cruz even more after the death of his son in 1981. After many years, Cruz named his own child Bixby to honor the bond they had for life. On The Incredible Hulk, Bixby made another strange connection with someone. With Joey King. Ferrigno became the youngest Mr. Peace Master Universe winner in history when he joined at age 21. He had never been an actor, though. Bixby was patient with him. Bixby would show Ferrigno how to show feeling in a quiet way during long night shoots. Gradually, Ferrigno started to refer to Bixby as a father figure. Even many years later, Ferrigno still said that his best episodes were the ones that Bixby directed. It was that friendship that helped Ferrigno become a real performer. In a TV movie called The Incredible Hulk Returns in 1988, Bixby came back as David Banner. This time, CBS wasn't showing it. ESPN showed it. It also brought in something new, Marvel's Thor. Bixby thought of that. He wanted to make the Hulk part of a bigger world. However, the network wished for more excitement and not so much drama. A push came from Bixby. It was his job to keep the sad piano music and deep tone in the movie. To become the Hulk again, Ferrigno had to work out very hard and gain 45 pounds in 3 months. May 22nd, 1988, was the date of the movie. It was true to Bixby's concept and paved the way for future Hulk projects. He kept getting better as a director. For an episode of Rich Man, Poor Man, Book 2, he was even up for a Directors Guild of America award in 1977. Strange, since the first author hadn't even written a second book yet. Bixby found out as he went along. Chapter 3 was the most memorable show, and it helped shape the future of miniseries TV. He didn't always succeed with his plans. He was in charge of a pilot for a third MASH version called Walter in 1984. Only one show, on July 17, 1984, was produced, and it was cut short on the West Coast because of the Democratic National Convention. The story made me feel too sad. Radar O'Reilly lost his farm, became a suicide police officer, and got divorced while he was still on his honeymoon. Critics said it was impossible to watch. One even said they'd rather see Walter Mondale's speech. A show called Dreams hired Bixby the same year. There was nothing like it at the time. Audio and stereo and music video styles were used. Starring were John Stamos and Jamie Gertz. Bixby directed the pilot episode for Kiss Me Red and an episode that was never shown called Suspicions. From October 3, 1984 to October 31, 1984, the show was only on. Although the show only had 5 episodes, Heart's Song alone became a big hit in 1987. Although the show was over, its music went on. From 1987 to 1988, Bixby was in charge of 8 episodes of the comedy show Sledgehammer. The movie was a spoof of Dirty Harry and had a lot of silly jokes and violent scenes. As a prisoner yelling, I'm free, when the wrong door opened, Bixby even had a small role in one episode. Strange, funny, and a good example of Bixby's range. She was Laura Michaels, and they got married in December 1990. It was like starting over, but it didn't last. He was told he had prostate cancer in 1991. They had been married for only a few months before she left him. In June 1992, they got a divorce. The worst part was that, eventually, he let his guard down, and now he was dealing with cancer by himself. Friends told me he was at his worst. He had cancer that was growing through his bones and no family or marriage. Billy Bixby learned he had prostate cancer in April 1991. Everyone could stop what they were doing when they heard that news. But not that guy. He maintained his speed. He came to work every day, in charge of episodes of NBC's hit show Blossom. By 1992, he still went to work even though he was in a lot of pain and the cancer had spread to his bones, lungs, and liver. His show was called Getting Lucky, and it aired on November 20th, 1992. He went to UCLA Medical Center the next day for a trial treatment with a drug called Ceramine. He tried to deal with the pain that wouldn't go away by taking pills and 4 drugs 5 to 6 times a day. But he never let the cast or crew see him getting angry. People were shocked that he worked while he was dying and still cared about getting every shot right. NBC showed a TV movie called The Death of the Incredible Hulk in February 1990, 2 years before this movie. It was Bixby's last time as Dr. David Banner, and he also directed the whole movie. Banner was hiding out in Portland, Oregon, by pretending to be a mentally ill cleaner named David Bellamy. After years of work to find a fix, Banner died in a plane crash. That feeling was too real, too close. A sequel called The Revenge of the Incredible Hulk had already been written behind the scenes. In it, Banner would come back to life, but this time with the Hulk's body and Banner's mind. That never happened. Everything came to an end when Bixby's cancer was deadly. If you watched CBS in January 1992, you might have seen Bixby play a murder suspect. He had been playing for more than 30 years before this. He was also going through very hard chemotherapy at the time, but he still put on one of his best shows. It was made in Vancouver, which was also the site of his previous Hulk movie. Strangely, he was still very smart. The movie also had Mariette Hartley in it. They'd done work together earlier. The fact that Bixby kept going through it all made everyone there feel very sad. Bill Bixby passed away in his Century City home on November 21, 1993. He was 59 years old. He had cancer that had been spreading for 3 years. Doctors said he lived almost 2 years longer than they thought he would, even back then. He took away more than one life when he died. Fans were hoping for a Hulk movie, but it didn't happen. The script for The Incredible Hulk, The Return. It was written back in July 1990, but there would be no sign without Bixby. Hundreds of people from the business world came to his funeral. He wasn't just seen as a performer. They remembered a man who always came through, was always kind, and gave everything he had every day. Bixby never stopped helping other people, even when he was hurt. He took time to teach each young actor and staff member something. He supposedly crawled into your mind to understand your problems before giving you help. All of this he did while happy and taking a lot of painkillers and treatments all the time. Bixby never talked down to anyone. According to his co-star Brandon Cruz from the show Eddie's dad was dating. Even when he was dying, he was kind to everyone. Years before, Bixby had also been through terrible things that most people would never get over. In 1981, his son Christopher, who was 6 years old, died suddenly while on a ski trip. Brenda Bennett, his ex-wife, killed herself the next year. Although she was unable to handle the death of their son, Bixby never stopped working. Working helped him get away. His co-workers said he didn't just keep going. Even though he was hurting, he kept helping other people. Even making the Incredible Hulk was harder on him than most artists would be willing to go through. For the parts where he changed roles, he had to wear painful hard contact lenses for 2 hours and take them out every 15 minutes. The actor Ferrigno spent 3 to 4 hours every day putting on green makeup to play the Hulk. For the first show in 1977, Ferrigno wore makeup for 20 hours straight. The green paint on the set kept getting on the kids' clothes and ruining them. Bixby never lost his cool, though. Anytime things got tough, he kept everyone together. It happened at 4 a.m. On the day of shooting, a wild coyote stole Lou Ferrigno's breakfast. An enormous omelet made of 12 eggs was sitting outside his trailer, and the fox grabbed it in the middle of that cold, early morning shoot. Bixby didn't get scared. He changed the plan, laughed about it, and went on with his day. The story went on about it. That's why the Hulk is so mad. He didn't eat breakfast. Most people don't know this, but Bixby trained Ferrigno himself. Before, Ferrigno had never been in a play. That made things even harder because he had trouble hearing. Bixby helped him with conversation, positioning, and even figuring out how people were feeling by watching how they moved for hours when they weren't on camera. They made sure that the makeup artists never got green paint near Ferrigno's ears because he wore hearing aids. Ferrigno told them that Bixby was like a dad to them. For acting lessons, he even watched old Bixby shows. There was a time when Cary Grant came to set just to meet the mummy. Bixby saw to it that Ferrigno got a picture. People looked up to him, and he always made sure everyone had what they needed. On the other hand, shooting for the Incredible Hulk was a nightmare. Not their own set. They were always changing places. 3/4 of the crew had quit or gotten sick by the 4th season. Days lasted from 12 to 14 hours. There were times when Ferrigno worked until 2 a.m. However, Bixby never missed a day, fell, or cracked. He had it all together even though he was directing Blossom just 5 days before he died. Even though Bixby and Ferrigno didn't spend much time together on screen, they were really together. Bixby would act out how Banner felt before the parts where he changed, which let Ferrigno match the feelings without having to use words. He was teaching him while also putting on his own show. That's why the Incredible Hulk's death was so sad. Bixby himself was hurting, not just Banner. NBC made plans for more movies after seeing how well that one did. Banner would have been revived by the next one. But cancer put an end to it all. 6 days before he died, Bixby directed the last episode of Blossom. Bixby taught Ferrigno more than just how to act. He taught him about life, fame, work, and having respect. The planned Hulk reboot also went away when Bixby left. Not having him there made it feel wrong.